She was laughed at while signing the divorce papers by her billionaire CEO until the judge revealed the prenup error. Sign here, Mrs. Rothschild, and this whole unfortunate chapter can be behind us. The lawyer's voice dripped with condescension as he slid the divorce papers across the mahogany table. Sophia's hand trembled slightly as she picked up the gold-plated pen, but her voice remained steady. I want to read through everything one more time. Oh, come now, Maximilian's attorney chuckled, exchanging amused glances with his client. It's all standard language. Mrs. Rothschild gets her little settlement, and Mr. Rothschild keeps his family's legacy intact. Everyone wins. Maximilian himself sat back in his leather chair, arms crossed, watching his soon-to-be ex-wife with a mixture of pity and impatience. Sophia, you're just prolonging the inevitable. We both know you signed the prenup. You get $50,000 and a clean break. That's more than generous considering the circumstances. The circumstances being that I'm supposedly barren and can't give you the heir your family demands. The room fell silent for a moment before Maximilian's lawyer burst into laughter. Well, when you put it so bluntly, yes. The Rothschild name requires certain standards, certain capabilities. Surely you understand that a woman who can't fulfill her basic biological function isn't suitable for a family of this caliber. More laughter echoed around the room as Sophia's face flushed with humiliation. She looked down at the papers, her vision blurring with unshed tears. Just sign the damn papers, Sophia, Maximilian said coldly. Stop embarrassing yourself further. But what none of them knew was that Sophia Navarro was carrying a secret that would make them all pay for their cruelty. What they didn't know was that in 12 years, she would return to that very courthouse as one of the most powerful women in the art world. And what they definitely didn't know was that the prenup they were all laughing about contained an error so significant it would destroy everything they thought they had won. Have you ever been underestimated so completely that people laughed at your pain? Have you ever been dismissed as worthless by someone who was supposed to love you? This is the story of a woman who was thrown away like damaged goods, only to rise from the ashes and become everything her enemies never thought possible. If you believe that underdogs can rise to incredible heights, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Because this story will show you that sometimes the greatest victories come from the deepest wounds. Let me take you back 12 years, to when Sophia Navarro was just a graduate student with stars in her eyes and love in her heart. The Rothschild Gallery was everything Sophia had dreamed of when she'd moved to New York City. The soaring ceilings, marble floors, and perfectly lit exhibitions made her feel like she was walking through a temple of art. At 23, she was completing her master's degree in art history at Columbia while working part-time at the gallery, cataloging pieces and researching provenance for the authentication department. She loved everything about the work. The careful examination of brushstrokes, the detective work of tracing a painting's history, the moment of revelation when a piece's true identity was confirmed. But what she loved most was the quiet moments after closing, when she could walk through the galleries alone and let the art speak to her without the chatter of wealthy collectors and society matrons. It was during one of these solitary evening walks that she first met Maximilian Rothschild. "You're here late." Sophia spun around, startled to find a tall, devastatingly handsome man watching her from the doorway. She recognized him immediately from the photographs in art magazines and society pages. Maximilian Rothschild, heir to one of the most prestigious art dynasties in the world. "Mr. Rothschild, I'm sorry, I was just finishing up some research. I'll leave right away. No need to rush. What were you looking at so intently?" Sophia gestured toward a small Degas sketch that most visitors overlooked in favor of the larger, more famous pieces. This sketch. Most people walk right past it, but look at the way he captures movement with just a few lines. It's more alive than paintings 10 times its size. Maximilian moved closer, studying both the sketch and the young woman beside him. "You have an interesting perspective. Most people focus on the big names, the obvious masterpieces. The obvious choices aren't always the most revealing ones. Sometimes the quiet pieces, the ones that don't demand attention, have the most to say." "Are we still talking about art?" Sophia felt her cheeks warm as she met his intense gaze. "I suppose we could be talking about anything." That conversation led to coffee the next evening, which led to dinner the following weekend, which led to the most intense, passionate relationship of Sophia's young life. Maximilian was everything she had never dared to dream of. Brilliant, cultured, sophisticated, and seemingly captivated by her knowledge and passion for art. "You see things other people miss," he told her one evening as they stood on the terrace of his penthouse apartment, the lights of Manhattan sparkling below them. "When you talk about a painting, you make me see it differently. You make me understand why art matters." "Art is about truth," Sophia replied, leaning into his embrace. "It's about capturing something real and honest in a world full of pretense." "Is that what you do? Capture truth?" "I try to. I paint sometimes, in my little apartment. Nothing fancy, just what I feel. I'd love to see your work." Sophia hesitated. Her paintings were deeply personal, raw expressions of her emotions and experiences. They weren't the polished, technically perfect pieces that hung in galleries like his. They're not very sophisticated. Not the kind of thing that would interest someone like you. Someone like me. You know what I mean. Someone who grew up surrounded by masterpieces, who understands the art world at the highest levels. Maximilian turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "Sophia, sophistication isn't about where you come from or what you're used to. It's about understanding, about feeling. And you have more of that than anyone I've ever met." Those words made her fall even deeper in love with him. For 6 months, they were inseparable. Maximilian introduced her to his world of gallery openings, private collections, and exclusive events. Sophia showed him art through her eyes, helping him see beyond market value and social status to the emotional truth at the heart of great work. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to change. It started with small comments from his family and friends. "She's charming, Maximilian, but is she really gallery material? Such a sweet girl, but one wonders about her background. Art history is a lovely hobby, but what are her real qualifications?" Then came the more direct conversations with his grandmother, Catherine Rothschild, the formidable matriarch who had built the family's art empire. "Maximilian, darling, I need to speak with you about this girl you've been seeing. Her name is Sophia, grandmother." "Yes, well, Sophia seems lovely, but you must understand that your position requires certain considerations. The gallery, the family legacy, the social expectations. Sophia understands art better than most people with degrees from fancy schools. Understanding art and understanding the art world are two very different things, dear. This is a business, not a romantic fairy tale. You need someone who can move in our circles, someone who brings connections and credibility." These conversations began to take their toll. Maximilian started to seem distant at social events, watching Sophia with a critical eye as she interacted with clients and collectors. He began to correct her pronunciation of artists' names, even when she was right. He started introducing her as one of our researchers rather than as his girlfriend. The breaking point came at the gallery's annual gala, a black tie event that brought together the most influential people in the art world. Sophia had saved for months to buy an appropriate dress, a simple but elegant black gown that made her feel confident and beautiful. "You look lovely," Maximilian said as they prepared to leave his apartment, but there was something reserved in his tone. "Is everything all right? You seem tense." "Just the usual pre-event nerves. This is an important night for the gallery." The gala was held in the gallery's main exhibition space, transformed for the evening with dramatic lighting and carefully placed floral arrangements. Sophia moved through the crowd with Maximilian, trying to ignore the way conversations seemed to pause when she approached, the way eyes followed her with calculating assessment. "Maximilian, dear." Catherine Rothschild appeared at his elbow, resplendent in diamonds and disapproval. "I want you to meet someone special. Vivian Ashbrook, from the Boston Ashbrooks. Her family has the most exquisite collection of impressionist works." Vivian was everything Sophia wasn't. Blonde, polished, with the kind of understated elegance that could only come from generations of wealth and breeding. She spoke to Maximilian with easy familiarity about mutual friends, exclusive schools, and family connections. "I've heard so much about your vision for the gallery," Vivian said, her voice musical and refined. "Father thinks your approach to contemporary acquisitions is absolutely brilliant." As Maximilian engaged in animated conversation with Vivian about market trends and acquisition strategies, Sophia found herself drifting away, studying the artwork on display. She paused in front of a Rothko painting, losing herself in the deep reds and oranges that seemed to pulse with emotion. "You have excellent taste." Sophia turned to find an older gentleman studying her with interest. "I'm Professor Morrison, from the Whitney. I don't believe we've met." "Sophia Navarro. I work here part-time while finishing my graduate degree." "Ah, and what's your specialty?" "Post-war American painting, particularly the relationship between emotional expression and technical innovation." Professor Morrison's eyebrows rose with genuine interest. "Fascinating area of study. What's your take on this, Rothko?" "It's about transformation. See how the colors seem to breathe, to move. He's not just painting an image, he's painting the feeling of change itself. The way red can represent both passion and pain, how orange suggests both warmth and warning. Remarkably insightful. You should consider doctoral work. Have you thought about a career in curation or museum work?" For 20 minutes, Sophia engaged in the kind of intellectual conversation that made her feel most alive. They discussed artistic movements, the politics of museum exhibitions, and the challenge of making art accessible without dumbing it down. When she finally looked around for Maximilian, she found him still deep in conversation with Vivian and his grandmother, their heads bent together in intimate discussion. The message was clear. She was the help, not part of the inner circle. The drive home was silent until they reached his apartment. "You disappeared for quite a while tonight," Maximilian said as they rode the elevator to his penthouse. "I was having a wonderful conversation with Professor Morrison about the Rothko exhibition. You should be more mindful of working the room. These events are about networking, building relationships with potential clients. I thought they were about celebrating art. They're about business, Sophia. Something you seem to have trouble understanding." The words stung, but Sophia tried to keep her voice level. "I was doing exactly what you've always said you admired about me. Seeing art deeply, understanding its emotional significance. There's a difference between private appreciation and public representation. When you're with me at these events, you're representing the gallery, the family name. You need to think about how you come across." "How do I come across?" Maximilian was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence, Sophia felt something fundamental shift between them. "You come across as someone who doesn't quite belong." The words hit her like a physical blow. She stared at this man she loved, this man she had trusted with her heart and her dreams, and saw him clearly for the first time. "I see. Sophia, I don't mean to hurt you, but we have to be realistic about what this is, what it can be." "What is it, Maximilian? What are we?" "We're two people who care about each other, who've shared something beautiful. But caring isn't always enough to bridge certain gaps." "What gaps?" "The gap between your world and the real world. The gap between who I am and who you need me to be. The gap between what I feel and what my family expects. What the business requires." Sophia felt her heart breaking, but she forced herself to stand tall. "What you're saying is that I'm good enough to sleep with, but not good enough to stand beside you in public." "That's not what I'm saying. It's exactly what you're saying. I'm sophisticated enough for your private moments, but not sophisticated enough for your public life. Sophia, please try to understand. This isn't just about us. There are expectations, responsibilities." "To whom?" "To your grandmother, who looks at me like I'm something unpleasant she stepped in. To a family business that values pedigree over passion. To a social circle that judges worth by bank accounts and bloodlines. To a legacy that's taken generations to build. A legacy built on what? Exclusion. Elitism. The belief that some people matter more than others." Maximilian's jaw tightened, and Sophia saw a coldness in his eyes that she'd never noticed before. "You're being naive, Sophia. The art world operates on certain principles, certain standards. It's not personal. It's completely personal. You're telling me that I don't meet your standards. I'm telling you that you don't understand the complexities of operating at this level." "The complexities? You mean the politics, the social climbing, the way people like your grandmother dismiss anyone who doesn't have the right accent or the right last name. My grandmother built this gallery from nothing. She understands what it takes to succeed in this world. Your grandmother built this gallery by learning the rules of exclusion and playing them perfectly. But that doesn't make those rules right. It makes them reality." Sophia stared at him, seeing the final collapse of everything she had believed about their relationship. "So what now? Do we pretend this conversation never happened? Do I go back to being your secret girlfriend while you find someone more suitable for public consumption?" I think we need to be honest about what this relationship can and can't be. Fine. Let me be honest. I love you. I love your passion for art, your intelligence, the way you make me feel when we're alone together. But I won't be anyone's shameful secret. I won't pretend to be less than I am to make other people comfortable. And I won't pretend that love is enough to overcome fundamental incompatibilities. Incompatibilities. Is that what you call it when someone doesn't have enough money or status to meet your family's approval? I call it being realistic about what makes a partnership work in the long term. A partnership. Is that what you think this is? A business arrangement? In some ways, yes. Marriage, family. These are partnerships that require compatible goals and compatible social positions. The word marriage hung in the air between them, and Sophia realized with crushing clarity that he had been thinking about their future in the most calculated terms possible. You've already decided, haven't you? You've already chosen to end this. I've decided to be honest about what I need from a life partner. And what you need is someone like Vivian Ashbrook. Someone with the right background, the right connections, the right pedigree. I need someone who understands the world I live in without having to learn it from scratch. Someone who won't embarrass you in front of your friends. Someone who can move in my circles without feeling like an outsider. Sophia felt tears threatening, but she refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of him. Well, then I guess we have nothing more to talk about. Sophia, please don't leave like this. We can figure something out. Figure what out? How to keep me as your mistress while you marry someone suitable. How to have your passionate affair and your proper wife. That's not what I want. It's exactly what you want. You want to have it all without having to choose. But I'm choosing for both of us. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, but Maximilian caught her arm. Don't throw away what we have because of pride. What we have is already destroyed. You destroyed it the moment you decided I wasn't good enough for your world. You're good enough. You're just different. Different. Not sophisticated enough. Not from the right family. Not wealthy enough. Not connected enough. How many different ways do you need to say that I'm not enough? You're putting words in my mouth. I'm repeating your words back to you, just more honestly than you're willing to say them. Sophia pulled free from his grasp and looked at him one final time. Goodbye, Maximilian. I hope you find everything you think you need in your perfect, sophisticated world. Sophia, wait. But she was already walking away, her heels clicking against the marble floor of his foyer. She didn't look back as the elevator doors closed between them, carrying her away from the man she loved and the dreams she had cherished. 2 weeks later, sitting in the tiny bathroom of her studio apartment, Sophia stared at the positive pregnancy test in her trembling hands. She was carrying Maximilian Rothschild's child, the child he would never know existed. She thought about calling him, imagined his reaction to the news. Would he see it as an opportunity to do the right thing, or would he view it as an inconvenient complication to be managed discreetly? Given everything that had passed between them, she couldn't bring herself to find out. Instead, she made a different choice. She would raise this child alone, build a life that didn't depend on anyone else's approval or acceptance. She would prove that a woman's worth wasn't determined by her ability to meet other people's expectations. But first, she had to survive. The pregnancy was difficult from the start. Morning sickness that lasted all day, exhaustion that made it hard to concentrate on her studies, and the constant worry about how she would support herself and a baby on her meager graduate student income. She quit her job at the Rothschild Gallery, unable to bear the thought of seeing Maximilian or hearing about his new relationship with Vivian Ashbrook. Instead, she took on tutoring jobs, helping undergraduate students with their art history papers for $15 an hour. Her tiny studio apartment barely had room for her easel, much less a crib, but she painted anyway. Late at night, when the nausea had subsided and the city had grown quiet, she would stand before her canvas and pour out all the emotions she couldn't express anywhere else. The paintings were raw, honest, filled with the pain of heartbreak and the fierce determination of a woman protecting her unborn child. She painted her fears and her hopes, her anger and her love, creating a visual diary of her transformation from naive girl to strong woman. "You're going to be okay, little one," she would whisper to her growing belly as she painted. "We're going to be okay. I'm going to make sure of it." Drop a comment if you've ever had to find strength in your darkest moment. Because Sophia's journey was just beginning, and what she would accomplish in the years to come would shock everyone who had underestimated her. The baby was born 6 weeks early on a snowy February morning. Luna Navarro came into the world small but fierce, with her father's striking blue eyes and her mother's determined spirit. Sophia held her daughter for the first time in the sterile hospital room, looking down at the perfect tiny face, and made a promise that would guide everything she did for the next 12 years. "I will never let anyone make you feel like you're not enough," she whispered. "And I will never let anyone make me feel that way again." The first year was the hardest. Sophia was determined to finish her master's degree, even with a newborn baby. She attended classes with Luna in a carrier, studied while the baby napped, and wrote her thesis during 3 a.m. feeding sessions. Her advisor, Professor Williams, was sympathetic but realistic. "Sophia, you're one of the most brilliant students I've ever worked with, but you're trying to do the impossible. Single motherhood and graduate school don't mix well. I'll make it work. Maybe you should consider taking a year off, focusing on the baby. I can't afford to take time off. I need my degree to get a better job, to build a career that can support us both. What about the baby's father? Surely he could help." Sophia's jaw tightened. The baby's father made it very clear that he has other priorities. Professor Williams studied her face, seeing the pain she tried so hard to hide. "I'm sorry, Sophia, but if you're determined to continue, you'll need to find reliable childcare." That was easier said than done on a graduate student's budget. Sophia cobbled together a patchwork of babysitters, from the elderly woman next door who watched Luna for $5 an hour to other graduate students who traded childcare duties. But somehow, impossibly, she made it work. She graduated summa cum laude with her master's degree, Luna sitting quietly in her stroller at the back of the auditorium during the ceremony. "What's next?" Professor Williams asked as they celebrated afterward. "Doctoral work. I want to specialize in art authentication and forgery detection. That's a highly competitive field. The programs are extremely selective. Then I'll have to be better than selective. I'll have to be exceptional." And exceptional she became. Sophia threw herself into her doctoral studies with the single-minded determination of a woman who had no safety net, no fallback plan, no choice but to succeed. She specialized in the technical analysis of brushstrokes, paint composition, and aging patterns that could reveal whether a work was authentic or forged. She developed new techniques for analyzing the chemical signatures of different paint formulations, methods that would later revolutionize the field. But it was her secret nighttime painting that truly sustained her through those difficult years. After Luna was asleep, Sophia would set up her easel in their tiny apartment and paint her emotions. The canvases grew more sophisticated as her technical skills improved, but they remained deeply personal, honest expressions of her experience as a single mother, a struggling student, a woman rebuilding her life from scratch. She began signing them Lumbra, the shadow, a reference to the shadow life she was living, hidden from the art world that had once rejected her. When Luna was 3 years old, Sophia made her first major breakthrough in authentication. A small museum had asked her to examine a painting they suspected might be a forgery, a minor work attributed to a mid-level abstract expressionist. Sophia spent weeks analyzing every aspect of the piece, from the canvas preparation to the final brushstrokes. Her conclusion was definitive. This is not only a forgery, it's a very recent one. The paint contains titanium dioxide in a formulation that wasn't available until the 1990s. The alleged artist died in 1987. The museum was grateful, but more importantly, word began to spread about the young doctoral student who had solved a case that had stumped more established experts. More consultation requests followed. Sophia's reputation for meticulous analysis and accurate conclusions grew throughout the academic community. She was still poor, still struggling to balance motherhood with her studies, but she was building something that no one could take away from her: professional respect. As Luna grew from toddler to child, she became Sophia's constant companion and greatest source of strength. The little girl was remarkably adaptable, sitting quietly in libraries while her mother researched, playing with art supplies while Sophia worked on authentication reports, always cheerful despite their modest circumstances. "Mama, why do you work so much?" Luna asked one evening as Sophia prepared dinner in their tiny kitchen. "Because I want to build something special for us. Something that will give us security and independence." What's independence? It means never having to depend on anyone else for what we need. It means being able to take care of ourselves no matter what. Are we poor? Sophia paused, considering how to answer honestly without frightening her daughter. We don't have a lot of money right now, but we have everything we really need. And someday, we'll have more. How do you know? Because Mama is working very hard to make sure of it. Luna nodded solemnly, accepting this explanation with the faith that children have in their parents' ability to make everything right. It was around this time that Sophia began selling her lumber paintings. She started small, consigning pieces to a modest gallery in Soho that specialized in emerging artists. The gallery owner, Marcus Rodriguez, was immediately drawn to the emotional power of her work. "These paintings have something I rarely see," he told her. "They have truth in them. Real, honest emotion that speaks to people." "The artist prefers to remain anonymous," Sophia said, maintaining the fiction that she was merely representing lumber rather than being the artist herself. "That's fine. Sometimes anonymity adds to the mystique." The first painting sold within a week. Then another. Soon, there was a waiting list for new lumber works. The money wasn't life-changing, but it was enough to move Luna and herself to a better apartment, one with a separate bedroom for Luna and space for Sophia to paint without having to clear everything away each morning. "I like our new home," Luna said as she explored their upgraded 2-bedroom apartment. "It feels bigger." "It is bigger, sweetheart. And you have your own room now." "Will we move again?" "Not unless we want to. This is our home now." The security of that statement, the ability to make it with confidence, felt like a victory greater than any academic achievement. By the time Luna started school, Sophia had completed her doctoral dissertation and was beginning to establish herself as one of the most promising young experts in art authentication. Her combination of technical expertise and intuitive understanding of artistic expression made her particularly effective at detecting sophisticated forgeries. "Dr. Navarro," said the director of a prestigious Manhattan museum, "we have a situation that requires the utmost discretion. We've been offered a painting that could be worth tens of millions, but we need absolute certainty about its authenticity." "What's the piece?" "A previously unknown Jackson Pollock, supposedly painted in 1950. The provenance seems solid, but something feels off about it." Sophia spent 3 weeks analyzing every aspect of the painting. She examined the canvas, the paint, the technique, even the nails used to stretch the canvas. Her conclusion was unambiguous. This is a masterful forgery, probably created within the last 5 years. The forger was extremely skilled, but they made one crucial error. They used a canvas that contained synthetic fibers that weren't available in 1950. The museum was relieved to avoid a catastrophic purchase, and Sophia's reputation soared. Soon, she was fielding authentication requests from major museums, auction houses, and private collectors around the world. Her fees grew accordingly. What had started as a few $100s per consultation became thousands, then tens of thousands for complex cases. Luna was 7 when they moved to their current home, a beautiful brownstone in a good neighborhood with excellent schools. "Mama, are we rich now?" Luna asked as they toured their new home. "We're comfortable, sweetheart. We don't have to worry about money anymore." "That's good. I like it when you're not worried." Sophia realized that her daughter had been aware of her stress all along, had been watching and learning from her mother's example of perseverance and determination. "Luna, what do you think is the most important thing in life?" The 7-year-old considered this seriously. "Being kind, and working hard, and never giving up. Those are all very important. Anything else?" "Making sure the people you love feel safe and happy." Sophia hugged her daughter close, marveling at the wisdom and empathy this child had developed despite growing up without a father, despite the struggles of their early years. "You're absolutely right, sweetheart. Those are the most important things." It was also around this time that lumber's paintings began attracting serious attention from major galleries and collectors. The mysterious artist's work was commanding higher and higher prices, with pieces selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Art critics wrote lengthy analyses of lumber's technique and emotional depth. Gallery openings featuring the artist's work drew crowds of collectors and celebrities. The art world was fascinated by the mystery of the artist's identity and the profound emotional truth of the paintings. Sophia watched this success with a mixture of pride and irony. The same art world that had rejected her was now celebrating her work, not knowing that the sophisticated, mysterious Lumbra was the same woman they had once dismissed as not quite good enough. The authenticity of emotion in Lumbra's work is unprecedented, wrote one prominent critic. This artist understands loss and transformation in a way that speaks to the universal human experience. If only they knew, Sophia thought as she read the review. If only they knew that every painting came from real loss, real transformation, real experience of being discarded and having to rebuild from nothing. But her secret identity served her well. It allowed her to build two successful careers simultaneously. Her reputation as Dr. Sofia Navarro the Authenticator growing alongside the fame of Lumbra the artist. By Luna's 8th birthday, they were financially secure. Sophia owned their home outright, had substantial savings, and was earning more money than she had ever dreamed possible. More importantly, she had built a reputation in the art world that was based entirely on her own merit, her own expertise, her own hard work. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Sophia said as Luna blew out the candles on her birthday cake. "I wish for us to always be happy," Luna said simply. "That's a beautiful wish." "What would you wish for, Mama?" Sophia considered the question. 8 years ago, she would have wished for security, for enough money to provide for her daughter, for professional recognition. Now she had all of those things. "I think I'd wish for you to always know how valuable and worthy you are, no matter what anyone else says." Why would anyone say, "I'm not valuable"? Sometimes people say hurtful things when they're scared or jealous or confused. But your worth doesn't depend on what other people think of you. Did someone say you weren't valuable, Mama? Sophia smiled at her perceptive daughter. "Once upon a time, yes. But I proved them wrong." "Good. You're the most valuable person I know." That night, after Luna was asleep, Sophia stood in her studio looking at her latest Lumbra painting. It was different from her earlier work, less raw and painful, more confident and hopeful. It showed a woman standing at the top of a mountain, looking out at a vast landscape spread below her. She had painted it as a celebration of how far they had come, but looking at it now, she realized it might also be preparation for what was coming next. Because 12 years after Maximilian Rothschild had broken her heart and dismissed her as not sophisticated enough for his world, Sofia Navarro was about to receive a request that would bring them face to face once again. This time, she would be the one with the power. This time, he would be the one who needed her. And this time, she would discover that the prenup that had seemed to strip her of everything had actually given her the ultimate tool for justice. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning in September, just as Sophia was reviewing authentication reports in her office. "Dr. Navarro, this is Rebecca Wilson from the Rothschild Gallery. Mr. Rothschild would like to request your services for a very important authentication project." Sophia's hand tightened on the phone, but her voice remained professionally neutral. "What type of project?" "A collection of paintings by Lumbra. Mr. Rothschild has the opportunity to acquire what may be the artist's earliest work, but he needs expert authentication before proceeding." The irony was almost too perfect to be believed. Maximilian Rothschild wanted her to authenticate her own paintings. "I'll need to review the project details before committing." "Of course. Mr. Rothschild was hoping you might be available to meet this week to discuss the specifics." Sophia looked out her office window at the Manhattan skyline, at the city where she had rebuilt her life from nothing. "Schedule something for Friday afternoon. And Rebecca, make sure Mr. Rothschild understands my current fee structure." "Certainly, Dr. Navarro." After hanging up, Sophia sat quietly for several minutes, processing the emotions that Maximilian's name still stirred in her. Anger, certainly, but also a satisfaction that felt almost cosmic in its justice. The woman he had thrown away for not being sophisticated enough was now the foremost expert in the very field that had brought them together. The art world that had once excluded her now celebrated her work, even if they didn't know her true identity. She picked up her phone and called her assistant. "Rebecca, please clear my schedule for Friday afternoon. And could you pull together a portfolio of my most significant authentication cases? I want Mr. Rothschild to understand exactly who he's dealing with." Because when Sophia Navarro walked into that gallery on Friday, she would no longer be the struggling graduate student who had been dismissed as unworthy. She would be Dr. Sophia Navarro, one of the most respected art experts in the world. and she had a feeling that Friday's meeting would be just the beginning of a very interesting reunion. The game was about to change completely, and this time, Sophia held all the cards. Friday afternoon arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made Manhattan feel electric with possibility. Sophia chose her outfit carefully, a tailored charcoal gray suit that spoke of success and authority, paired with understated but expensive jewelry. She wanted to look like exactly what she was, a woman who had made it to the top of her field through her own merit. Luna was at school, blissfully unaware that her mother was about to confront the father she had never met. Sophia had told her daughter nothing about the appointment, maintaining the same protective secrecy she had practiced for 11 years. The Rothschild Gallery looked exactly the same as Sophia approached it, all gleaming marble and soaring glass designed to make visitors feel both awed and slightly intimidated. But as she walked through those familiar doors, Sophia felt none of the nervousness that had once plagued her here. She belonged in spaces like this now, commanded respect in rooms where she had once felt invisible. Dr. Navarro. The receptionist's voice was deferential, respectful. Mr. Rothschild is waiting for you in his office. Thank you. Sophia's heels clicked authoritatively against the marble floors as she made her way through the gallery. She paused briefly in front of a Monet that had been there 12 years ago, remembering the young woman who had once stood in this same spot, dreaming of a future she could barely imagine. Dr. Navarro. The voice made her turn, and suddenly she was face to face with Maximilian Rothschild for the first time in 12 years. He had aged, but aging had only enhanced his natural magnetism. His dark hair was now threaded with silver at the temples, and there were lines around his eyes that spoke of stress and responsibility. But those piercing blue eyes were exactly the same, and for a moment, Sophia felt herself transported back to the woman she had been. Then she remembered who she was now. Mr. Rothschild. Her voice was coolly professional. Thank you for accommodating my schedule. Thank you for considering the project. Your reputation precedes you. I understand you're considered the finest art authenticator in the world. I'm very good at what I do. Whether I'm the finest is for others to judge. Maximilian gestured toward his office, and Sophia noticed the way his eyes lingered on her face, as if he was trying to reconcile the successful woman before him with his memories of the young graduate student he had once known. His office was a study in refined taste, every piece carefully chosen to convey both artistic appreciation and substantial wealth. But what caught Sophia's attention was the framed photograph on his desk, showing Maximilian with a beautiful blonde woman and a young boy. Your family? She asked, keeping her voice neutral. My wife Vivian and our son Christopher. We married 9 years ago. Vivian Ashbrook. Of course. The suitable choice his family had approved of all those years ago. He's a beautiful child. He is. There was something strained in Maximilian's voice, almost regretful. But let's focus on why you're here. He led her to a private viewing room, where 3 paintings hung under perfect museum-quality lighting. Sophia felt her breath catch as she recognized her own work, her Lumbra paintings displayed with the reverence usually reserved for old masters. These are extraordinary, she said truthfully, studying the pieces she had painted during some of her most difficult years. The emotional content is remarkable. That's what draws people to Lumbra's work. There's something deeply autobiographical about these pieces, as if the artist is painting directly from personal experience. If only you knew, Sophia thought. Each brushstroke had been born from her own pain, her own struggle, her own transformation. What's your authentication question? I have the opportunity to acquire what may be Lumbra's earliest work, painted approximately 12 years ago. If it's authentic, it would be worth tens of millions and provide crucial insight into the artist's development. Sophia's blood ran cold. 12 years ago, she had painted exactly one piece, the raw, emotional canvas she had created while pregnant with Luna, depicting her own transformation from ashes to phoenix. I need to examine the piece to provide a professional opinion. Of course, it's in my private collection upstairs. As they walked through the gallery toward the elevator, Sophia noticed Maximilian glancing at her repeatedly, as if trying to solve a puzzle. You've built an incredible career, he said finally. Thank you. I always knew you were brilliant. Your insights about art were always extraordinary. Sophia couldn't resist the opening. But not sophisticated enough for your world, as I recall. Maximilian stopped walking. Sophia, about what happened between us. That was a long time ago. We were different people then. Were we? Or did we just understand ourselves less clearly? Before Sophia could respond, they had reached the private elevator that led to his penthouse apartment. The same penthouse where he had broken her heart 12 years ago. The doors opened to reveal a space that was both familiar and strange. The layout was the same, but everything else had been redecorated in a style that spoke of professional designers rather than personal taste. It felt beautiful but cold, like a magazine spread rather than a home. The painting was displayed in the living room, and seeing it stopped Sophia's breath entirely. It was exactly as she had painted it during those dark months after their breakup, raw and powerful, depicting a woman rising from flames with wings of fire, her face turned toward hope despite the destruction around her. She had painted it the night she decided to keep their baby, when she realized that losing Maximilian had actually freed her to become who she was meant to be. "What do you think?" Maximilian asked softly. Sophia forced herself to study her own work with professional detachment, though her heart was racing. The technique is consistent with Lumber's later works, but there's a rawness here that suggests early development. The emotional content is exceptionally intense. It speaks to something profound, doesn't it? Loss, transformation, rebirth. Yes. Sophia's voice was barely above a whisper. It does. I bought it from a small gallery in Soho 8 years ago. The owner said it had been consigned by someone who wished to remain anonymous, painted during a period of personal crisis. That would be consistent with what we know about Lumber's background. As Sophia continued her examination, she became acutely aware of Maximilian watching her with an intensity that had nothing to do with professional consultation. "There's something I need to tell you," he said suddenly. "What?" "Seeing you again, having you here, it's brought back so many memories. So many regrets. Maximilian, I was wrong, Sophia. About everything. I was young and arrogant, and I let my family's expectations matter more than my own heart." Sophia set down her magnifying glass and faced him fully. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because looking at this painting, thinking about the artist who created it, has made me realize that some kinds of sophistication can't be taught or inherited. They come from experience, from surviving pain and transforming it into something beautiful. You're reading quite a lot into a painting. Am I? Or am I finally seeing clearly?" Maximilian stepped closer. The artist who painted this understood loss in a way that could only come from living it. Just like you understood art in a way that I was too blind to appreciate 12 years ago. "Maximilian, you're married. You have a child. This conversation is inappropriate." "My marriage." He ran a hand through his silver-streaked hair. "Vivian and I, we have more of an arrangement than a marriage. We're compatible socially, but there's no real connection between us. That's not my concern, isn't it? Because standing here with you, I'm remembering what real connection feels like." Sophia felt dangerous emotions stirring, the pull of old attraction combined with the vindication of his acknowledgement. But she also thought of Luna, of the life they had built without him. "You made your choice 12 years ago. You chose what was safe and appropriate over what was real. I was an idiot." "Yes, you were. But that doesn't change anything, doesn't it?" "Sophia, tell me honestly, did you ever think about what might have happened if I'd been brave enough to choose you?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with years of might-have-beens. Sophia felt herself wavering, remembering the intensity of what they had shared. "I thought about it for a long time. But then I realized that someone who truly loved me wouldn't have needed to choose. They would have seen my worth from the beginning. And now, do you think people can change? I think people can grow and learn. But I also think some wounds cut too deep to fully heal. What if I told you I was willing to prove that I've changed? What if I left Vivian, acknowledged my mistakes publicly, showed you that you're worth more to me than any social expectations?" Sophia's heart raced at the thought, but she forced herself to remain rational. "What about Christopher? Your son? I would still be his father. But Vivian and I, we should have remained friends instead of trying to build a marriage on mutual convenience. You're talking about destroying your family for a woman you haven't seen in 12 years. I'm talking about finally having the courage to choose love over fear." Sophia stared at him, seeing something in his eyes she had never seen before. Vulnerability, genuine regret, and what looked like real love rather than just passion. But there was something he didn't know, something that would change everything. "Maximilian," she said softly, "there's something I need to tell you." "What?" "The reason I left that night, the reason I never contacted you again, it wasn't just wounded pride." "What do you mean?" 2 weeks after I walked out of this apartment, I discovered I was pregnant." The words hit Maximilian like a physical blow. His face went white, and he reached for the back of a chair for support. "Pregnant? With your child? A daughter?" "You have my child." His voice was barely a whisper. "I had our child, Luna. She's 11 now, brilliant and beautiful and everything I could have hoped for. 11 years old." Maximilian's voice broke. "I have a daughter I've never met." "Yes. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you had made it crystal clear that I wasn't suitable for your world. I wasn't going to subject my child to the same judgment and rejection. But she was my daughter too. I had a right to know. You gave up that right when you chose your family's approval over our relationship." Maximilian sank into a chair, his head in his hands. "Oh God, Sophia. I've missed 11 years of her life." "Yes, you have. What is she like?" Despite her anger, Sophia's voice softened when she spoke about Luna. "She's incredibly bright, artistic like both of us. She questions everything, sees the world in ways that constantly amaze me. She's kind and fierce and completely herself." "Does she know about me?" "She knows her father is someone who couldn't be part of our lives. I've never spoken badly about you, but I've never told her the details either." "What does she want to know?" "She's never pressed for information. She's content with the life we've built together." Maximilian looked up at Sophia with tears in his eyes. "I want to meet her. Please. I know I have no right to ask, but I want to know my daughter. I don't know if that's wise. Sophia, please. I've already lost 11 years. Don't make me lose any more." "What about Vivian?" "Christopher, your perfect life. It's not perfect. It's never been perfect. It's been a beautiful lie that I've been living to avoid admitting I made the worst mistake of my life." Sophia studied his face, seeing genuine anguish there. Part of her wanted to punish him further, to make him suffer as she had suffered. But another part of her, the part that had loved him so completely, wanted to believe in the possibility of redemption. "If I agreed to let you meet her, it would be under my terms. Supervised. No promises about ongoing contact." "I understand. And Maximilian, if you hurt her in any way, if you disappoint her or make her feel like she's not enough for you, I will make sure you never see either of us again." "I understand that too. She's not a novelty or a way to ease your guilt. She's a whole person with feelings and needs that matter more than your emotional journey." "I know." Sophia was quiet for a long moment, weighing the risks against Luna's right to know her father. "There's one more thing you should know," she said finally. "What?" "I'm Lumbra." Maximilian stared at her in complete shock. "What?" "I'm the artist whose work you've been collecting. Every painting, including this one. I painted them all." "But how is that possible?" "I started painting again after Luna was born, as a way to process my emotions. I needed the income, so I began selling them anonymously. I never expected them to gain such recognition." "You're Lumbra." Maximilian's voice was filled with awe. "You're one of the most celebrated artists of your generation. I'm a woman who turned her pain into something beautiful and valuable. The sophistication I said you lacked. You've created some of the most sophisticated art of our time. Sophistication born from authentic experience, not inherited privilege." Maximilian stood up slowly, moving toward the painting of the woman rising from flames. "This painting, you painted it when you were pregnant with Luna." "Yes. It's about transformation, about finding strength in loss, about discovering that what I thought was the end of my world was actually the beginning of my real life." Maximilian turned back to her, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "You've become everything I always knew you could be. Everything I was too stupid to value when I had the chance. I became what I needed to become, for myself and for Luna. And now, is there any chance, any possibility, that we could try again? All three of us, as a family." Sophia felt the dangerous pull of hope, the temptation to believe in fairy tale endings. But she also felt the weight of responsibility to Luna. "I don't know. Too much has happened. Too much has changed. But you'll let me meet Luna. I'll consider it. Thank you. That's more than I deserve." As Sophia prepared to leave, Maximilian caught her hand. "Sophia, I know I have no right to ask this, but do you think you could ever forgive me? Not for my sake, But for Luna's, children deserve to know both their parents when possible. Sophia looked down at their joined hands, remembering how those hands had once made her feel so loved and desired. I forgave you a long time ago, Maximilian. I had to, for my own peace of mind. But forgiveness doesn't erase the past or guarantee the future. I understand. What I haven't decided is whether you've truly changed enough to deserve a place in Luna's life. How can I prove that to you? Time. Consistency. Show me that your love for her comes without conditions, without expectations about who she should be or how she should fit into your world. And what about us? Sophia pulled her hand free gently. There is no us, Maximilian. There's only a man who wants to know his daughter and a woman trying to decide if that's in her child's best interest. Fair enough. But as Sophia walked away, she felt Maximilian's eyes on her, and she couldn't deny the spark that still existed between them, complicated now by years of growth, pain, and the shared bond of the child they had created together. 3 weeks later, the meeting took place in Central Park, neutral territory where Luna felt comfortable and Sophia felt in control. She watched from a nearby bench as her daughter approached the man she had arranged to meet, curious but cautious in the way that served her well. Maximilian had arrived 15 minutes early, clearly nervous in a way Sophia had never seen him. He wore simple clothes, jeans and a sweater instead of his usual tailored suits, and his hands shook slightly as Luna walked toward him. "Are you Mr. Rothschild?" Luna asked with her characteristic directness. "I am. And you must be Luna. Your mother told me you're an artist." "I paint sometimes. Mom says I have good instincts for color." "She's right. She has excellent instincts about art herself." Luna studied Maximilian with the intensity she usually reserved for paintings she was trying to understand. "You look familiar. Do I know you from somewhere?" "We've never met before, but we might have some features in common." "Oh." Luna processed this information with the matter-of-fact acceptance of a child who had always known her father was somewhere in the world. "Are you my father?" The direct question clearly caught Maximilian off guard, but he recovered quickly. "Yes, I am." "Why haven't you been around?" "Because I made some very bad choices a long time ago that hurt your mother. I didn't know you existed for most of your life. But you know now." "Yes. And you want to know me. More than anything in the world." Luna nodded, apparently satisfied with his honesty. "What do you want to know?" For the next hour, Sophia watched her daughter and her ex-lover get to know each other. Maximilian asked about Luna's art, her school, her friends, her dreams. He listened with genuine interest, treating Luna like a complete person rather than a child to be patronized. Luna, for her part, seemed to approve of this man who gave her his full attention and asked thoughtful questions about her work. "Do you have other children?" Luna asked at one point. "I have a son named Christopher. He's a bit younger than you. Would I like him?" "I think you might. He's very bright like you." "Does he know about me?" "Not yet. The situation is complicated." Luna nodded with the wisdom of a child who had learned early that adult relationships were often mysterious. "Most things are complicated. That's what Mom says." When their time was up, Luna hugged Maximilian goodbye with the same spontaneous warmth she showed anyone who had earned her approval. "Will I see you again?" she asked. "Would you like to?" "I think so. You're more interesting than I expected." Maximilian laughed, a sound of genuine delight. "You're exactly as wonderful as I hoped." After Luna skipped back to Sophia, leaving them alone for a moment, Maximilian approached with tears in his eyes. "She's incredible, Sophia. Absolutely incredible." "She liked you." "Did she? How can you tell?" "She hugged you goodbye." Luna doesn't hug people unless she trusts them. "Thank you for letting me meet her, for giving me this chance." "This is just the beginning, Maximilian. Earning her trust is one thing. Keeping it is another." Over the following months, Maximilian proved his commitment through consistency. He showed up for every scheduled meeting with Luna, never canceled, never made her feel like an inconvenience. He attended her school art show, took her to museums on Saturday afternoons, and gradually began building the kind of relationship that had nothing to do with obligation and everything to do with genuine affection. He also filed for divorce from Vivian, despite the social and financial complications involved. The settlement was substantial, but Maximilian handled it all quietly, focused more on figuring out how to blend his relationship with Christopher into his new reality with Luna. "Your father kept his promises," Sophia told Luna one evening as they prepared dinner together. "I like him," Luna said simply. "He listens when I talk, and he asks good questions about my paintings. Are you happy that you got to meet him?" "Yes. It's nice to know where I get my eyes from." It was around this time that Sophia received an unexpected phone call from a lawyer she had never heard of. "Dr. Navarro, my name is Patricia Hoffman. I specialize in family law and prenuptial agreements. I'm calling because I've been retained to review some old legal documents, and your name appears in connection with a case that may interest you." "What kind of case?" "A prenuptial agreement from approximately 12 years ago involving a marriage between you and Maximilian Rothschild." Sophia's blood ran cold. "What about it?" "There may have been some irregularities in how that agreement was executed. Would you be available to meet this week to discuss the details?" "What kind of irregularities?" "The kind that could have significant legal and financial implications. I'd prefer to discuss this in person." Sophia agreed to the meeting, though she couldn't imagine what legal complications could arise from a prenup she had signed so long ago. The marriage had lasted less than 6 months, and she had received the settlement specified in the agreement. Or so she had thought. Attorney Patricia Hoffman's office was in one of Manhattan's most prestigious legal buildings, all marble and mahogany designed to convey serious money and serious power. Hoffman herself was a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who got straight to the point. "Dr. Navarro, I've been retained by a group of investors who are in litigation with certain members of the Rothschild family over some business dealings. In the course of reviewing financial documents, we discovered some concerning discrepancies related to your prenuptial agreement." "What kind of discrepancies?" "First, let me ask you this. Do you remember the circumstances under which you signed the prenup?" Sophia thought back to that terrible time, the pressure from Maximilian's family, the lawyers who had treated her with barely concealed contempt. "I was told it was standard language protecting family assets. I was given very little time to review it, and I wasn't represented by my own attorney. That's what I suspected." "Dr. Navarro, that prenup was invalid from the moment you signed it." "What do you mean?" "According to New York state law, both parties in a prenuptial agreement must have independent legal representation, or there must be a written waiver of that right. You had neither, but I received the settlement specified in the agreement." "You received $50,000, yes. But according to the assets Maximilian Rothschild held at the time of your divorce, you were entitled to significantly more under New York's equitable distribution laws." Sophia felt the room spinning around her. "How much more?" "Conservatively, $12 million. With interest and investment returns over the past 12 years, closer to $30 million. The number was so staggering that Sophia couldn't process it. "But why are you telling me this now?" "Because the statute of limitations on challenging the prenup doesn't begin until you discover the fraud. And there's evidence that the Rothschild family attorneys knew the agreement was invalid when they drafted it." "Evidence?" Hoffman slid a folder across the desk. "Internal memos between the family's legal team discussing strategies for minimizing the financial exposure of Maximilian's unfortunate choice of bride. They specifically mention using language that would be difficult for an unsophisticated party to understand." Sophia read through the documents with growing amazement and fury. The lawyers who had laughed at her in that courthouse 12 years ago had known exactly what they were doing. They had deliberately crafted an agreement designed to cheat her out of her legal rights. "There's more," Hoffman continued. "The trust fund that was supposed to be protected by the prenup. It turns out that Maximilian had already received his full inheritance before your marriage. The prenup was protecting assets that were entirely his own, not family trust money. So the entire premise was a lie, completely fabricated. You were entitled to half of his personal assets under New York law, regardless of any family trust considerations." Sophia sat back in her chair, trying to absorb the magnitude of what she was learning. "What are my options?" "You can file suit to void the original prenup and claim your rightful share of the marital assets. Given the evidence of fraud and coercion, you'd almost certainly win. And what would that mean for Maximilian? It would mean he'd owe you approximately $30 million, plus legal fees and punitive damages for the fraud." Sophia thought about Maximilian, about the man who had been working so hard to prove he had changed, about Luna's growing relationship with her father. "What if I don't want to pursue it?" "That's your choice, of course. But Dr. Navarro, this money was stolen from you through legal fraud. You and your daughter have every right to claim what's yours." That evening, Sophia sat in her study, staring at the legal documents that could change everything. With $30 million, she could ensure Luna's future in ways she had never imagined. She could fund scholarships for other struggling single mothers, support emerging artists, make a real difference in the world. But she could also destroy Maximilian in the process. The irony was almost perfect. The prenup that had seemed to strip her of everything had actually given her the ultimate tool for justice. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. "Sophia." Maximilian's voice was warm with affection, the way it had been during their evening conversations over the past months. "How was your day?" "Complicated." "Yours?" "Good. I had lunch with Luna and took her to see the new exhibition at the Whitney. She has incredible insights about contemporary art." "She does." "Sophia, is everything all right? You sound distant." "Maximilian, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course. The prenup we signed 12 years ago. Did you know it was legally invalid?" The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that Sophia thought they might have been disconnected. "Maximilian, how did you find out?" "So you did know." "I didn't know at the time. I found out about 2 years after our divorce when I changed law firms. My new attorney reviewed all my legal documents and flagged several problems with the prenup. And you never thought to tell me. What would have been the point? Our marriage was over. You had moved on with your life. I thought bringing it up would just cause more pain. The point would have been justice, Maximilian. The point would have been giving me what I was legally entitled to." "You're right. I should have told you. I should have made it right." "Why didn't you?" "Because I was a coward. Because I was ashamed of what my family had done, and I didn't want to face the consequences of their actions." "Your family's actions?" "My grandmother orchestrated the whole thing. She was terrified that you'd claim half my inheritance, so she had her lawyers draft an agreement that would be legally unenforceable, but that you wouldn't have the resources to challenge. So they stole from me deliberately." "Yes." Sophia felt a familiar rage building, the same fury she had felt 12 years ago when Maximilian's lawyers had laughed at her pain. "Do you have any idea what that money would have meant to me? To Luna? Do you know how many nights I stayed awake worrying about how I'd pay for her education, her health care, our basic needs?" "I know. And I'm sorry." "Sorry isn't enough, Maximilian. Sorry doesn't give me back 12 years of financial stress and uncertainty. What can I do to make it right?" "I don't know if you can." After hanging up, Sophia sat in the darkness of her study, weighing her options. She could pursue the lawsuit, claim what was rightfully hers, and potentially destroy Maximilian in the process. Or she could choose to move forward, focusing on the future rather than the injustices of the past. The next morning, she called Patricia Hoffman. "I've made my decision about the prenup case. And I want to pursue it. Not for revenge, but for justice. And because Luna deserves to know that her mother fought for what was rightfully theirs." "Understood. We'll file the papers this week." The news broke 3 days later, splashed across the front pages of the financial and legal sections of every major newspaper. Art expert challenges Rothschild prenup in multi-million-dollar fraud case. The media coverage was intense, but largely sympathetic to Sophia. The story of a young graduate student being cheated out of her rightful inheritance by one of New York's most powerful families resonated with readers who had their own experiences with institutional injustice. Dr. Sofia Navarro's case highlights the ways wealthy families manipulate the legal system to protect their interests at the expense of less powerful individuals, wrote one prominent legal columnist. "The evidence of deliberate fraud in this case is overwhelming." Maximilian called her the day the story broke. "Sophia, I want you to know that I'm not going to fight this. You're entitled to everything the law says you are. It's not about what you want, Maximilian. It's about what's right." "I know, and you're right to pursue this." "What about your family? They must be furious." "My grandmother is having apoplectic fits, and the family lawyers are in full panic mode. But they brought this on themselves." "What about Luna? How do we explain this to her?" "We tell her the truth, in age-appropriate terms. That sometimes adults make mistakes that have to be corrected later." The legal proceedings moved quickly. With such clear evidence of fraud and coercion, the Rothschild family's attorneys were eager to settle rather than face a public trial that would further damage their reputation. The final settlement was $32 million, plus legal fees and a formal apology from the family's legal team. But what meant more to Sophia than the money was the public vindication, the acknowledgement that she had been wronged and that the system could, sometimes, be corrected. "What will you do with it?" Luna asked when Sophia explained the settlement to her. "Some of it will go toward your education and our future security. Some of it will go to helping other single mothers and struggling artists. And some of it will go towards something I've been dreaming about for a long time." "What's that?" "Opening my own gallery. A place where emerging artists can show their work, where people can discover new talent, where art matters more than social connections." "That sounds perfect, Mom." "I think so too." 6 months later, the Navarro Gallery opened its doors in a beautifully renovated space in Chelsea. The opening exhibition featured works by Lumbra, with Sophia finally revealing her identity as the mysterious artist who had captivated the art world for nearly a decade. "I'm proud to introduce myself as Lumbra," Sophia said at the opening reception, surrounded by the cream of New York's art world. "These paintings represent my journey from heartbreak to hope, from struggle to strength. They remind us that our greatest challenges can become our greatest triumphs." The revelation that Dr. Sophia Navarro and Lumbra were the same person sent shockwaves through the art world. Critics and collectors who had dismissed her 12 years ago now lined up to praise her vision and talent. Maximilian was there for the opening, having been invited by Luna, who insisted that her father should see her mother's triumph. "I'm proud of you," he told Sophia as they stood in front of the painting that had started it all, the image of a woman rising from flames. "Thank you. I mean it. You've accomplished something extraordinary here. We all have. You, me, Luna. We've figured out how to be a family in our own way." "Is that what we are? A family?" Sophia looked around the gallery, at the art that represented her authentic self, at the daughter who had given her the strength to rebuild her life, at the man who had hurt her but had also learned to love better. "I think we're something even better than a traditional family. We're people who chose each other despite everything that tried to keep us apart. And us. Sophia, is there a chance for us?" Sophia had been thinking about this question for months, weighing her lingering feelings for Maximilian against the need to protect herself and Luna from potential heartbreak. "I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. Really, but slowly, carefully, with Luna's well-being as our first priority. I wouldn't want it any other way." 1 year later, Sophia and Maximilian were married in a small ceremony in the garden behind her gallery. Luna served as maid of honor, and Christopher was the ring bearer. The guest list included art world luminaries, family members who had finally learned to appreciate authenticity over social status, and the friends who had supported Sophia through her journey from heartbreak to triumph. As they exchanged vows under an arch decorated with paintings from the gallery, Sophia reflected on the long road that had brought them to this moment. The pain had been real, the years apart had been necessary, but they had led to something better than either of them could have imagined 12 years ago. "Do you, Sophia, take Maximilian to be your husband, promising to love him not despite his flaws, but because of his capacity for growth?" "I do." "Do you, Maximilian, take Sophia to be your wife, promising to honor not just the woman she is today, but the journey that made her who she is?" "I do." As they kissed to seal their marriage, the guests erupted in cheers, and Sophia felt the last piece of her heart heal. The woman who had risen from ashes had not only learned to fly, but had found someone worthy of soaring beside her. Their love story was written in paint and passion, in legal documents and second chances, in the daily choice to see each other clearly and love what they saw. It was a masterpiece worthy of Lumbra herself, complex, beautiful, and absolutely authentic. Luna, now 12 and wise beyond her years, smiled as she watched her parents dance at their reception. "Are you happy, sweetheart?" Sophia asked as she and Maximilian approached their daughter. "Very happy. But I have one question." "What's that?" "Are you going to hyphenate your name again?" "Because Sophia Navarro Rothschild is kind of a mouthful." Maximilian laughed, the sound rich with joy and promise. "Actually, I was thinking of taking your mother's name. Maximilian Navarro has a nice ring to it." "Really?" Sophia looked at him in surprise. "Really? It's time for me to be part of your world, rather than asking you to fit into mine." As the evening progressed, surrounded by art and love and the family they had created through choice rather than obligation, Sophia realized that sometimes the greatest victories do indeed come from the deepest wounds. She had been laughed at while signing divorce papers by people who thought they were superior to her. But in the end, she had won something far more valuable than money or revenge. She had won the right to be exactly who she was, to love and be loved authentically, and to build a life that honored both her struggles and her triumphs. The prenup error had given her justice, but her own strength had given her everything else that mattered. And that was a victory worth every tear she had shed along the way. If this story of redemption and second chances touched your heart, subscribe to Lux Love Chronicles for more incredible stories of love conquering all odds. Share this with someone who believes in the power of forgiveness and growth. And tell me in the comments, do you think Sophia made the right choices? What would you have done in her situation? I read every single comment and love hearing your thoughts on these powerful stories of transformation and triumph.